Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is just going to be a little roundup covering a bunch of Kiwi Ears products. I've got the Astral, the Etude, the Aether, and the Atheia. The Atheia is the only closed-back headphone that I've tested in a while. I was actually very excited about it, but the tuning for gaming-related purposes I think is going to take a step back. We'll certainly get into certain titles and how it performs and my overall impressions. I've already reviewed the Kiwi Ears Astral. The Astral is exceptional. It is my favorite IEM right now, up to $300, and it is going to be the best competitive IEM, I think, on the market right now, up through that price point. I think the Astral has worked for me in every single title, including Rivals, Siege, CS, Apex, Valorant. It's really a all-rounder, which is why we score it at an A. And I'm not going to be discussing the Astral in this video, other than the fact that I do want to let you guys know I've already reviewed it. It got scored in A. It is going to be the IEM to beat. And when we talk about some of the differences from some of these other IEMs, we'll get into what you can expect bumping up from some of these other ones to the Astral. Again, right now, the Astral is my everyday IEM, and it is my favorite IEM up through $300 right now. I think it's fantastic. The Aether is an exceptionally good IEM, and I'm going to get into some of its features for gaming-related purposes, but this IEM is absolutely a star for competitive gaming purposes in the $150 price range. One, the IEM is fairly comfortable. Let me just take it off of this third-party cable. This is the Moonshadow cable that I have on these IEMs right now. And I also have third-party tips. We'll take those off, which are Asla EarFit lights. But the faceplate actually does look beautiful. It's got this kind of gray, white, silvery streaks, and then just a sparkle of a few different colors that we see there. The chassis is a 3D printed resin, and it is a nozzle size that, to me, is not wide and it's not too long. For me, the fit was fine for more than 8 hours playing at a given time. I also found the Etude to be comfortable as well. We'll take the third-party cable off of these. The Aether is a single large planar driver, and to me the sound actually comes off quite smooth with these. It's just kind of a pleasing playback that you definitely get like that planar-esque feeling. The Etude is one beryllium dynamic driver at this price point, which is actually quite interesting. 3 balanced armatures and a vibration transducer. Now, the vibration transducer is something that I was very excited about. When you are listening to things in kind of like the lower mid-range, I guess, is where it kind of activates. First, look at that faceplate. The faceplate is really, really cool. Streaks of gold, silvers, blacks, and then some of those colored sparkles like the Aether. But the 3D resin chassis is a kind of smoky translucent. You can see some of those drivers inside the IEM. The IEM has good ergonomics here on the resin chassis. It is a fish mouth nozzle, and the nozzle I don't find to be too wide or too big, and both IEMs are vented. The IEM, again, I think it's a pretty solid looker, and just a very interesting array of drivers here, and obviously, of course, different than the Aether and the Astral. Now, the Aether is going to be an IEM, I think, that hits the mark for a lot of people up through the $150 range. The Aether is going to get a solid B+ on my wallhack certification tier list, but it's also an IEM that's just absolutely fantastic from a music playback perspective. But taking it in game, some of the things that you can really expect is a really clean but punchy bass. It sticks out. It's fun. It's not a lean-sounding IEM, but it's also not a basshead IEM or one that gets overly warm in game. It's got a soundstage that I think is kind of in that more leaning towards the more perfect soundstage for gaming-related purposes. It's not on top of you and waiting on you. But it's not too far away either. It's not lean sounding. So footsteps come through with a greater emphasis in literally every title that I've taken it into in comparison to the Etude as well as the Atheia. The Aether is that type of IEM where you're getting that elevation, that extra emphasis and urgency in those footsteps in a lot of scenarios. For instance, in Call of Duty, when somebody's above me, below me, or pushing me, it's more of this holographic sensation because the footsteps are coming through very clean and punchy, but they're also coming through with greater emphasis, greater imaging, greater depth perception. As a result, I started recording my own gameplay and listening back to my notes so that I could remember what I'm thinking about some of these comparisons. And I wanted to just show you guys some of those videos about the Aether. And in this particular clip, I was actually discussing the fact that inside of buildings, it's a lot easier to read who's above me and below me, where they are on the Aether in comparison to the Etude. Much better element of imaging as well as that verticality again. Like that sense of imaging of him continuing to spray as I'm behind, like I'm just getting such a more pinpoint read on where he is in the building. I mean, it's just so much better than the Etude. A very fun sound as well, because the bass really does have a lot of bite to it. And again, that soundstage is fairly like immersive feeling, but not overly so. Like it's that soundstage that's quite perfect for a lot of FPS titles. Not too close, not too far. Also, like, footsteps in general and even slides are just coming through with a greater level of detail and a better read. Like, that emphasis, the ability to read it is just greater on this than the other things that we've tested. As he's getting closer to me, that like emphasis on those taps in grass just came through so good. Like there are a few instances where things just get a little bit too kind of like claustrophobic feeling. Like it could open up and breathe a little bit more. But overall, the Aether is just a very good gaming IEM and overall just sounds fantastic. And the things that we're looking for, the separation, the layering, when multiple people are shooting in the same general vicinity, for instance, in Valorant with a Vandal, the Aether is able to be cleaner in those scenarios and provide better separation and layering in those scenarios where I can kind of pinpoint before crossing the wall and being in line of sight. I already have in my mind where those different people are shooting those Vandals. Whereas on the Etude or the Atheia, things become a little bit more blurry, a little bit more muddy. And obviously, when we swap to something like the Astral, it becomes even more clean on the Astral. So I think that the Aether for me is going to get a solid B+, almost into the A-. The reason why I hold back and give it a B+ is in some of those intense scenarios, in more of the upper ranked tiers, so Masters lobbies, Diamond lobbies in Masters and Apex, for instance, when you're in a lot of crowded scenarios, I wish there was just a little bit more micro detail coming through, a little bit more clarity, and sometimes just in some of those more rare moments, but obviously ones that happen a lot in more of those competitive scenarios, it falls back just a extra bit, I feel like, in comparison specifically to something like the Kiwi Ears Astrals or the Mangird Tea Pro. Now, the Atheia. The Atheia is interesting. I wanted to really love this headphone. I think the aesthetic of this headphone is fantastic. The comfort of this headphone is really nice. Got a large planar and dynamic driver, but the tuning is just a little bit too focalized, a little bit too emphasized in that upper mid-range. So what is occurring in almost every single title that I take the Atheia in is gunfire is too loud. It's too shouty. It is the thing that is focalized out of everything else that's happening in game. And this is happening in Apex. It's happening in Call of Duty in particular. And it's happening in Valorant. And when I'm shooting, when I am spraying a Vandal, shooting a Sheriff, everything else in Valorant, for instance, kind of just fades away. And that's obviously something that isn't going to work in most titles, even in Valorant and tag shooters, because if I am focused on somebody, but I'm also getting pushed, if I'm beginning to spray or burst, etc., I need to still be able to hear the things that are happening around me. The gunfire is also something that feels rather lean. I'm not getting this great sense of fun or immersion. The sound space does get this sense of depth and space around you, but everything feels lean. And the only thing that's really sticking out to me, again, is that gunfire, which also sounds lean because it's more of this shoutiness being drawn out from the upper mid-range as opposed to the sub bass shining through. So for me, it's just not really a fun set for gaming-related purposes, but it's a very comfortable set. But it's also just not something that's working for competitive gaming. The game that actually had the biggest hiccup on the Atheia was Call of Duty. It just does not work at all. And I'll just cut through and show you guys some of my in-game feedback as I'm playing and just taking my notes. I'll show you guys some of my in-game thoughts with the Atheia.
Yeah, even just flying in, it's very shrill and very shouty. Just way too loud on the gunfire. So with gunfire, that sounds close. I just can't hear anything over the gunfire. Separation, layering, everything goes out of the window. Gunfire is shouty, and as airstrikes are coming through, it actually is quite occlusive as well. It's just like this massive elevation of this kind of like light feeling, thin feeling airstrike coming through. It just comes off as shouty, not fun, not resolving. It's just a kind of an unpleasant experience. Just separate and apart from the competitive aspect, which obviously fails, it's just not an enjoyable experience. If I'm shooting, if somebody, like even that guy flying in, that's coming through so shrill and so elevated, everything else just ceases. If somebody's running next to me, if somebody's shooting, I just don't hear anything. So when you add this element of other people shooting or other audio cues coming in at the same time, airstrikes, etc., I just would not be able to use these for competitive gaming. I mean, it's something that fails the test so badly that it kind of doesn't even make sense for me to proceed any further. It's just not something that's going to work for Call of Duty. Certainly, you could try to EQ these and see what you can get out of them, but the default tuning out of the box is not working for Call of Duty for me at all.
So the Atheia is not going to make it on the wallhack certified tier list. I actually did, though, I do just want to say, like, for Apex Legends, if you're looking for a closeback, it's not the worst for Apex Legends because that gunfire is shining through very well in Apex around the map and at a depth. You still get this nice sense of space. The game just, again, the tuning is just something that comes off very lean. It's not that fun for me. And I do feel that because of that upper mid-range, like slides and lighter taps on metal, people climbing buildings, that stuff still comes through quite well, but the separation and layering still aren't there. It would make it on a wallhack certified tier list at a lower ranking for Apex, but it's just not going to make it there for a lot of the other titles that I've tested. So it's going to stay off the wallhack certified tier list. When we talk about the wallhack certified tier list, what we're looking for, again, is something like the Astral, something that makes it for each and every title. Sometimes an IEM will be like a C+ in COD, but a B in something else. The Atheia just didn't quite hit for a multitude of titles at a good level. Now, when we get to the Etude is interesting. I do think it's actually a pretty solid tuning. Again, it's kind of like clean and more kind of neutral-esque for the frequency range, but then you're getting this, again, uplift in bass that's providing this level of fun. It's got a punchy bass, and that vibrating transducer maybe helps uplift that bass to an extent. But overall, like, I do find it to be a clean IEM. I do find it to be an IEM that works for gaming with its underlying tuning. Now, where I just fall off on the Etude is I just don't think that this is an IEM that is made particularly for gaming. I think this is more of a music listening experience, and if you want to test that vibrating transducer. The reason I say that is because in a lot of titles, that transducer is just being activated at too fast of a rate, I feel like. For instance, shooting a 301 in Apex Legends, what happens is the transducer is vibrating so much that it's almost turning the gunfire into the sound of almost like a paintball gun shooting into like a garbage can, or it's just hard to explain. It's kind of like a ping pong effect. It's like it literally sounds in the IM like when you're shooting a 301 and you're cracking into someone's armor, for instance. And it's happening at too fast of a rate that it just throws things off and just sounds rather odd. But overall, like the tuning in Apex isn't bad, the underlying tuning. It's just not anywhere near something like the Aether. The Aether is just so good that I'm really struggling if I want to put it at an A- or a B+. It's really like right in that sweet spot. And it is going to be the cheapest IM right now that is in that position. So if you've been looking for an absolutely banger of an IM that performs great for music as well as competitive gaming, the Aether is fantastic. When we get into Call of Duty on the Etude, just to knock out some of the other titles, it does sound good in Call of Duty, but there's just something about that bass region that isn't coming off quite clean. It's a little bit more boomy in Call of Duty than it feels in Apex, and it's making the footsteps and the audio cues just not sound well represented within the space. So when I'm kind of like rotating my crosshair to a audio cue, I just find that depth read isn't nearly as accurate as it is on the Aether or, again, the Astral. The Etude, again, it sounds good, and surprisingly, the vibrating transducer, I didn't have issues with airstrikes or with mortar strikes making that vibrating noise. Every once in a while, I would hear it with some types of guns in Call of Duty, but overall, like I didn't get that same effect that I got a lot in Apex. Likewise, in Valorant, I hear that a little bit, and it actually happened more in like some of the not as bassy footsteps, but all of a sudden you would hear like a step on a certain material in Valorant, and you would hear kind of like that boingy ping pong noise, which just gets a little bit odd. I don't find the vibrating transducer to help at all for gaming related purposes, and if anything, it actually detracts from the experience, at least in its presentation on the Etude. When you take it into music, it's actually quite cool. But when you are listening to podcasts, when you're listening to YouTube videos, or somebody is talking to you, your teammates are using voice chat in game. I have to bring this up as well because obviously, if you're playing at a competitive level, you're probably playing in a team, or you are not solo queuing. But even if you are solo queuing, I'm assuming that you're probably trying to comm with your teammates. When a lot of male vocals are coming through, it kind of causes that transducer to pick up a lot. So when you can get the sense that when this vibrating transducer is really coming through and you're getting that like ping pong effect, it is a little bit harder to concentrate on things that are happening in game when your teammates are calming and that effect is happening at the same time. So the Etude, I would say, it's actually a really cool IEM. If somebody wanted to test out that vibrating transducer for music, like definitely give it a go. It's very cool. It's just not something that I would use if my main focus is listening to podcasts or if my main focus was gaming. Overall, I think the star of the show in this video, and again, I've already hit on the Astral. The Astral is an A. It's my favorite IEM, my everyday driver up through that $300 price point. But the Aether gets very, very close for half of the price. It's got that nice planar sound that's very, it's just a very pleasant tuning in game. Nothing feels shouty. Nothing feels, to me, too sparkly or fatiguing. The bass comes through very punchy, and it's not like a warm sound. It's a clean sound with great sense of clarity, but you just have this punchy bass. I do find it to be a little bit warmer in overall feel and smoothness than something like the Arete, something like the Volume S, a few other things on the wallhack list. But it's just not this like bass heavy set, and the bass is clean. It's technical. The mid-range feels very clean and present. And again, it's got that soundstage in game that I find to be in a very good spot. Not too far, not too close, making those footsteps feel elevated and the imaging feel holographic because everything is clean as you're getting those elevated hits in footsteps. That's what sets the Aether apart, and that's what sets something on the B+ range or the A- or the A range apart from everything else. I think when you really get into something that's really good for competitive gaming, you're looking at things at a B+ and above. But obviously, everything on the wallhack certified tier list works for gaming. But really, we're looking at those fine minutia of what is cleaning off layers of something to make it feel even better. So, of course, when you do go to the Aether to the Astral, I think it's a solid upgrade, which is why I'm kind of more akin. I'm kind of feeling more placing the Aether at a B+ bordering an A-, because when I'm swapping between the two, that extra added element of clarity and micro detail on the Astral is really shining through to me to make me want to place it a little bit further on that wallhack certified tier list. But two killer IEMs from Kiwi Ears. And again, I think my top pick up to $150 right now would be the Aether. And my top pick then, as you go up to $300, would be the Astral. For me, the Atheia and the Etude just didn't quite work for gaming-related purposes. I do think the underlying tuning of the Etude can work for gaming, but because of that vibrating transducer just not really working well in a lot of scenarios, it's just not something I would personally recommend. The ping-pong effect in game with a lot of gunfire or some things that activate that transducer, and with a lot of communication from your teammates, male vocals, etc., it just makes it kind of a little bit harder to pay attention to things that are happening around you. And it's just not something that I find was probably focused or generated in the first place for gaming. But the Aether and the Astral, absolutely insane products from Kiwi Ears. I do think the Aether is right on par with something like the Orchestra Lite. It's got a little bit of a different tuning. It's got a different driver orientation, and it is more comfortable and wearable for a longer duration. So I'd probably recommend the Aether over the Orchestra Lite if you're looking for a new IEM. And I think it's still cheaper, actually, than the Orchestra Lite as well. But guys, those are my thoughts for gaming. The Aether is something that worked for me in every single title. I know we kind of didn't really do like a targeted hit in everything, but the Aether is definitely something that works in every single title. Apex, Siege, CS, it worked in Fortnite, it worked in Rivals, literally everything I tested, and that's why it gets scored highly on the wallhack certified tier list. I hope it helped, guys. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. See you guys in the next review. Peace.